It's been a while since we've talked about what I think are the best tag synergy teams in the game, and today we're going to be looking at my latest graphic on this topic. As with all of my graphics, this one will be available on my Discord, on the official Discord for DC Dark Legion, and then at some point in the future it will go on to my website as well. Now, I did make some adjustments to the format of the list in case you are following along from the prior iteration that we did, but for the most part, the same setup. I'm just trying to give you a list of what I think from ranked from top to bottom are the best tag synergy teams in the game. And this isn't always going to match up with what might be the best team for whatever scenario that you find yourself in. So, you can't always use just one team for everything across all game modes. You might be in Training Simulator on a level that you have to kind of mess around with the team comp and figure out how to solve that puzzle. Same thing with Anti-Crime Network. But for the most part, the idea for this is just to say, hey, if you have, five characters that fit this description, then you want to make sure that you're trying to get as many tag synergies in as you can in some cases. Not all the time is that going to work, but for the most part, those tag synergies do play a vital role in whether or not you're going to win. You don't always need, five or six tag synergies or three or four tag synergies. You might just need one. In the case of Superman family, for example, we can talk about them first. You really just need that Superman family tag synergy, but you're also going to be getting metahuman tag synergy if you're using all four of those champions. So let's talk a little bit more about Superman family. I do think they're probably the best team in the game right now. There are some others that are up there with them, but obviously Legion of Doom is seeing a lot of play. We've got a few other teams that are up there that can counter them in the highest levels of meta brawl and 3v3. But I think Superman family is very strong. They've got a lot of support champions that make their kits even better. And they're going to be getting the Superman family tag synergy as well as the metahuman tag synergy. And I think some of the best supports for the Superman family team are going to be Flash and Queen Hippolyta if you have access to her in the bleed already. So both of those champions are going to give you the fifth metahuman tag synergy, and it's just going to give you even more attack for your team. One thing you'll notice on this list versus the prior one that I did, I am trying to offer a lot more optionality for each of these teams so that you kind of feel like there are different ways that you can build the team and still get those tag synergies. And we'll talk about that a little bit more with the Bat Family and Teen Titans, as well as Justice League Dark and Justice League. Moving down to Legion of Doom, I mentioned this is one of the best teams in the game, and you'll see that there are only two tag synergies in this team, but you're getting that five tag synergy for Legion of Doom, which means that if you have a well-invested Lex Luthor, you're going to be getting a massive amount of what I would say turn meter in other games, but basically energy gain for your team, and you're going to be able to take turns really, really fast. So at the highest levels of Meta Brawl and 3v3, the reason why Legion of Doom is so popular is if you invest heavily into them, get their force maxed, and you have pretty decent gear on them, especially if you get some energy gain transmutes, this team is going to take their turn so quickly that the match will just end. And it really just comes down to who can take their turns the quickest. So like who has the most additional energy gain and transmutes. And it's really crazy to watch some of those matches, but incredibly powerful team. The Weapon Master tag does help. Obviously, being able to get four tag synergy Weapon Master buff is going to help a lot with your Deathstroke and your Lex. But really what you're striving for there is the five tag synergy with Legion of Doom, and they continue to be one of the best tag synergy teams in the game because of their energy gain. The next team is going to be a hybrid Bat Family and Teen Titans team. We've talked about this a lot before on the channel, especially during the Teen Titans and Bat Family events. where the idea is that you're able to get a massive amount of crit damage and crit rate on your Nightwing or Robin, whichever one you're using. One of the things that I've done with this new lineup that I've provided for Bat Family and Teen Titans Synergy is I tried to give a little bit more optionality for kind of like how you want to build the team out. I've also tried to make it where you have a little bit more frontline support. The last time that I did this, I basically recommended that you run Nightwing and Robin in the same team and you don't have a tank. Now, again, you can still do that if you want to go super aggressive, especially if you feel like you have the healing for something like combat cycle or maybe even PvP. But for the most part, the idea is to try to have at least one tank in the teams if we can do that for you. Now, the core for this team that makes the most sense, regardless of how you run it, you're going to need Batgirl, you're going to need Cyborg, and you're going to need your Starfire. You could probably get away with not having Cyborg in the team, but again, we're trying to get as much damage as possible on your wing condition. Now, the optionality here, again, is going to be choosing between Nightwing or Robin. And Robin offers an early sort of semi free to play or at least light spend option for you to build your Bat Family out and be able to do a massive amount of damage. He's really kind of like Nightwing light and definitely, a person that you would want to a champion that you would want to build if you're focusing on Bat Family and Teen Titans while you're waiting for some of those bleed champions to show up. And especially if you feel like you're just not going to have a lot of anvils. A lot of people have been following this strategy where they basically just wait all the way until Nightwing shows up and they don't spend any anvils until then. And it can be kind of frustrating to not really feel like you have much of a team. If you spend a little bit of money on the game and you can daily deal, if you just daily deal Robin into blue stars or low purple stars early game, you will find a pretty massive return on your investment there. And then, it's going to be a lot easier to survive and feel like you're able to contribute in modes like combat cycle and even in PvP. Just because Robin's going to be able to put out a massive amount of damage. And then you have an option between Red Robin and Batman. Now, you've heard my opinion plenty of times on both of these champions. I don't really find either of them super effective in terms of, just if you compare them against other warriors and guardians in the game. But I do think that with Bat Family and trying to achieve as much tag synergy as possible with Bat Family and Teen Titans, both of these champions offer a lot to your team. And particularly Red Robin is going to be able to get you even more tag synergy because he has that Teen Titans tag. With that in mind, I think this is one of the better teams that you can build long-term for your account just because of the massive amount of crit that you can attribute to your Nightwing, and he will just work wonders for you in literally every game mode. So the next team is going to be Justice League Dark, and this is a team that I feel like was kind of falling off a little bit just because of the introduction of new one-off characters that were allowing us to really max out some of our other teams and do a lot more damage. Obviously, the introduction of Supergirl for Superman family kind of made Constantine taper off a little bit, definitely kind of fell down the ranks as far as people who can do massive amounts of damage. But I still really like Constantine. I'm really high on the Justice League Dark faction. And I think your core, no matter how you build this team, has to include Constantine and Dr. Fate. I don't see how you can leave either of them off. And then Raven is obviously the only healer for the faction, so you kind of need her. But there are some things you can kind of play around with here. And the first thing is going to be with the introduction of Swamp Thing. A lot of us really feel like Wonder Woman is designed to be pushed into the Amazons team now. And I mean, you pretty much have to have her to try to get as much physical defense for your Amazons team as possible for the introduction of the two new characters that you're going to be getting fairly soon around the time this video releases. And then Swamp Thing uh, coming into the game really makes it a lot easier to do that replacement. He's also going to provide massive amounts of damage reduction, and you'll still be able to get, all that spiritual amp that you want to be able to get for the team. A lot of people have asked, like, is Swamp Thing a replacement for Zatanna as kind of like your main support for the team? And to me, the answer is no. You pretty much need Swamp Thing and Zatanna in the same team for a lot of for running a full Justice League Dark to make sense. So the way I have tried to put together this team recommendation is you can choose between Swamp Thing or Wonder Woman. Obviously, when you're first starting out in the game, you're going to have a legendary version of Wonder Woman, and Swamp Thing is going to be an afterthought. It's going to take a while to get around to his bleed. So you were really forced to run Wonder Woman if you want to run Justice League Dark. But over time, you will be able to replace her with Swamp Thing, and it makes a lot of sense to, throw her over onto Amazon's. As far as your fifth slot, this is something I've talked about on the channel as well. We have Zatanna here. Obviously, she makes the most sense for the team. But if you decided to go after Sinestro so that you had a really nice damage dealer on your account before you got to Constantine and Zatanna, then it's going to basically, you're going to have a lot of optionality to decide to just not pull for Zatanna at all. And then you can just use Sinestro to, he's going to be able to amp your Constantine's spiritual amp. And then he's also going to be able to kind of be like that second win condition for the team as well. So kind of an interesting play, especially for something like PvP. Also for combat cycle, it can be fairly helpful. But overall, it's probably more advisable to go after Zatanna for the full Justice League Dark tag synergy if that's what you're after. But a little bit of interchangeability there, and I wanted to provide that. In the prior version of this graphic, I had two separate iterations of Justice League Dark, and one of them included Sinestro and Scarecrow. I really decided to go away from that because the introduction of Swamp Thing gives you the option to have kind of that second frontline tank or guardian champion without needing Sinestro in the lineup. Moving right along to Justice League, this is one that is a lot of people are probably going to be building some form of Justice League when they first start their account. And if you're a non-spender or a very light spender, really your best option for a very long time is going to be Justice League, especially if you go after Superman. Now, the prior iteration of this team, I really just kind of included it as like a heavy spender team. I mentioned that you should probably, like, the ideal scenario would be to run Green Lantern, but obviously very select group of people even have access to Green Lantern at even white stars, let alone having him at high, purple, yellow, or red stars. And so my new approach for recommending this team is to try to provide a few different options so that you can build this out over time. And it's going to actually make it where a light spender or even a free-to-play player can feel like they're able to build this team over the course of a few months. Probably not within the first 2 months of having your account, but definitely over the course of, let's say, a 6-month period, which is a little bit better window for being able to build out an account on this game. You will be able to build this out. So we're talking Superman, who you have access to immediately when you start the game. And then you'll be able to build your Flash, your Aquaman, your Shazam, potentially, and then Mira could kind of build out your first team. Now, if you're a spender, obviously over time, you'll want to replace Mira with your Green Lantern. And then you can choose to continue to run your Shazam, or maybe down the road, you might want to pull Martian Manhunter, who does provide some kind of niche capabilities in terms of being able to shut down Justice League Dark and other teams that are able to do AoE damage. And it's not included here, but obviously, you also have access to a tank champion like Wonder Woman, who would make a lot of sense in this team as well. In a few moments, we'll talk about the free to play version of Justice League that I've also included here, which is really kind of the precursor to this team and what you will be building in the first couple of months after you start playing. The last long term team that I want to mention for you is going to be this Arkham's Most Wanted Legion of Doom hybrid team that I've mentioned a lot on the channel. And one thing that I want to caution you on is that the longer this game has been around, the more we're starting to realize that this type of tag synergy team might not make the most sense all the time. Now, obviously, I do still feel like there are some pretty strong tag synergies here, but especially with kind of the realization that Bane actually does a really nice job of protecting your Arkham's Most Wanted team, I really feel like you might have better results if you try to build a Joker team that's pretty much all Arkham's Most Wanted, at least 4 tag synergy for Arkham's Most Wanted. So I'm going to probably consider changing this out for more of a pure play Arkham's Most Wanted Joker team. And that team will probably include Joker, Scarecrow, Bane, who you really kind of need like 2 frontline tanks on the team, or at least warriors, but in this case, tanks who can kind of protect your Joker so that he can do all the damage that he's able to do. If anyone's able to break through that front line, it's going to make it pretty difficult for you to keep the team alive. The idea of this Legion of Doom Arkham team is that you're going to be able to take turns fairly quickly because you have access to a champion like Lex, and you'll be able to, basically use your Sinestro as a win condition, and Joker is just kind of there to kind of like clean up the scraps. Really, if the fight continues to go on, he's going to be able to get his ult off a few times and wreak havoc on the enemy team. Now, I will say that especially pre all of the major changes that we had last week to all the champions in the game, this would not really work out that well at the highest levels of PvP. And I still feel like that's kind of the case. You need to be able to act quickly, and Joker is just a champion that, even with all the buffs that they continue to give him and Scarecrow, it's just not enough to make him fully viable in PvP, or at least we need more testing to try to figure out whether that's the case. But this team does offer a lot of functionality for some of your more PvE centric modes like Combat Cycle and Training Simulator. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you have access to the champions to be able to build this team, whether you feel like this works really well for you or if there are other options that make more sense. Obviously, if you are a spender at all and you have access to Legion of Doom, you're probably going to be running that over this team. But, early on in an account, you might not have much of a choice but to try to run something similar to this. Like I said, I'm looking into probably moving this to more of an Arkham setup to try to give you an idea how to build that team out. And actually, the more I think about it, if I do that, it becomes more of a recommendation that's going to be helpful to free-to-play players and light spenders, because again, over that kind of 4 to 6 month time frame, you will be able to build some of these 10 shard, like the regular mythic champions, a little bit higher than you will be able to pull, let's see, 1, 2, 3, potentially 4 champions that you'd have to pull out of the bleed. And all those champions would need to be pulled in rapid succession. So be on the lookout for the November version of this, which will probably see some changes here and maybe a couple of other changes as well. And the last team that I want to talk about is more of a true free-to-play team that is 100% accessible, and really it's a team that you can build almost day one, especially if you're able to get a copy of Superman in the first week that you're playing the game. It's definitely a team that you'll be able to run within the first 30 days after you start your account. And this is going to be revolving around Superman and the Justice League tag synergy. So you will be getting 5 Justice League tag synergy here, which is going to provide you a pretty decent amount of attack and HP. And then you're also potentially going to be able to get the 3 metahuman tags here from Superman, Wonder Woman, and Flash. And kind of the idea of this one is it's like a very early version of the hyper carry for Superman, where you can use Flash to cycle Superman's ultimate as many times as possible. You have a pretty decent amount of healing, and then you'll have Superman and Wonder Woman tanking, and then Superman kind of as an off tank up front. Just a really nice all around team. And the nice thing about this one also is that if you play on manual mode in something like Combat Cycle or in Training Sim, especially, you'll be able to use your Green Arrow to take out some backline champions that maybe Superman can't get to. So a lot of optionality with this team, and I think a lot of free to play players will get a lot of use out of it. I kind of talked about how there's a little bit of synergy where you're starting out with a team that's has a lot more accessible lower level champions in it, and you can build to something higher. And with this particular team, you'll have Superman, Mira, and Flash, who you're going to be able to take into that higher level true hyper carry team for Superman. And long term, the nice thing about this Superman free to play team is you'll have several champions that you can take into other rosters that you're going to be playing with. A champion like Flash, and we'll talk about this more in just a second, is one that you're going to be carrying through regardless of whatever team you're building. And then obviously Mira is a really nice healer early on that will allow you to kind of transition over to one of the other healers, whether you go for Crypto with a Superman family team or Green Lantern. If you are a spender, you'll be able to switch over to him as well. So, a lot of options for a free-to-play team like this one. And the last thing that I want to talk to you about in this video is the plug and play options that I think are really things that you can use with whatever team you build. There are a lot of 4-tag synergy or just 4-man teams that you can put together where you can take one of these plug and play champions, throw them on the end, and it makes a lot of sense. There are also situations like Combat Cycle where you can use multiple of these champions in that team, and you're going to basically do a massive amount of damage doing it that way. There are a couple of Combat Cycle teams that I've been using recently, especially for the AoE enemies, and one of them involves Joker as your hyper carry, and then the other one involves Supergirl as the hyper carry. So the Supergirl one, you would be using Supergirl, Crypto, Superboy, Flash, and Cyborg. The other one is going to be Joker, Scarecrow, Superboy, Flash, and Cyborg. And there are some different variations again on those, but you can do a massive amount of damage by having a little bit of protection to keep all of your champions alive, and then basically just trying to put as much attack as possible onto your Joker or your Supergirl, like your win condition. Well, I think that's a good spot to wrap up this best tag synergy teams video. I want to hear from you. Let me know what your favorite tag synergy team is. Let me know if you've used some variation of what I put together today. I want to hear about whether these tag synergy teams are truly the best, or if maybe there are some things we can do to fix this graphic and make it more helpful for players in the future. As always, if you'd like to get notified every time I put out a new DC Dark Legion video like this one, then make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Either way, I hope to see you in the next video.